In this lesson, you're going to learn how to create 3D splines in 3D sketches. The part that's currently on the screen is called Sweeping Wires, and it can be found in your Infinite Skills directory for Chapter 3. This is a part that was also used in the basic course to talk about 3D sketches in general. All we're interested in here is this green wire, and we're going to take it from being a round wire to being a flat wire. And instead of using a sweep, we're going to use a boundary feature to complete it. So I'm going to suppress the sweep feature and recreate the 3D spline. I'll start with opening a 3D sketch, and I'm going to sketch in some reference geometry. A construction line from the midpoint of one edge to the midpoint of another edge on this connector. From here, I can start sketching with a spline. I'm going to start at the midpoint of that line, and as I need the wire to come straight out from this part, I notice that the origin will change as my view changes, but I want this wire to come basically out in the Z direction. So when it snaps right in at the Z, I'll put a point here. As I put other points, it's going to deviate from that direction, but I'll come back later and add a relationship at the beginning of the spline to make it come straight out from the connector. From here, I'm going to put some spline points down, and I'll try to get some spline points here in the corner. I want to make this spline go the wire guide. So I'm going to zoom in here, wake up the center, pick up that point, and then get the same point on the other side. This will save me a little bit of work later on. I'm using a Spaceball here, or 3D Connection Space Pilot. That helps me keep control of my view orientation. I'll come back later and also create some relationships to clean it all up later on. Once I'm through the whole, double-click to end the spline. It can be tricky making a spline this long in a single pass. But now let's create some relations from the other end. So I'll select the spline handle, and give that an along Z sketch relation. I may want to adjust this to make it come straight out or whatever. So now I'm going to click on this point, click on this face, on surface. Keep doing that. On surface. On surface. This is all going to get a little kinked up, and it'll get worse before it gets better. But notice it works okay going through the guide. This works out best if you have physical points where you can connect the spline to help guide it. Okay. And from there, I'm going to try to get this area fixed up a little bit. Might drag this closer to the wall. This closer to the corner. Drag this down. When you have a wire that's just going to go through the solid like this, and you want to avoid that, you can use your handles to help avoid that situation. In this case, I'll take this one and make it a long Z. Take this handle, make it a long X. And this will clean it up rather quickly. You can move some of these points around to try to unkink some of the. And again, over here, we got a handle that we can make along Z. In some cases, you might want to draw straight lines through here to make it easier and more controllable. and only use splines at the corners. Some people would use straight lines and arcs to make it very controllable, but then it looks less realistic. In some cases, realism is not the goal. I understand that in a manufacturing drawing situation. Here's where we need to fix the height of this point. Now, to drag this point, once you've started to drag it, you can hold down the control key and it will not pick up any additional relationships. Don't hold down the control key and then try to drag it, because control drag is copy. But you might have to look at this thing in a couple of different perspectives or points of view in order to get it right. I start dragging and then hold the control key. One great way to work with 3D sketches is to go to the window viewport to work with your data in this fashion. This allows you to see it correctly and to move it in such a way that it moves properly. When you move something from, say, a top view, unless a point has special sketch relations, it's going to move parallel to the view in which you're viewing it. It won't move at a diagonal on the top view. It will move at a diagonal in the trimetric view. So you need to be careful about the view in which you make these changes. To make this wire a flat wire, I'm going to exit the 3D and start making a series of cross sections of the wire in a 3D sketch. So I'm going to draw this line in space. I'm going to make sure that the line is always the same width. And notice that I had selected to place my dimension down here, but SOLIDWORKS thought I was trying to dimension from the line to the face. And in SOLIDWORKS 2012, when you made a mistake in the selection like this, you can just hit escape and it removes the last item from the selection. To place this dimension where I need it, I'm going to white space. And I'll make this a 1/2 inch wide. I want to place this line at the midpoint. Going to make this essentially along the X direction. Move over to this point, draw another line. I want this to be in the Y direction. And again, I'll make a midpoint relation. And this should be, again, a 1/2 inch. Make another line. Draw it along approximately the X or Y axis, and then use the along Y relation. Assign a relation between the line and one of the spline points. And then dimension the line to be the same length as the previous line. Now let's start again with the process. Draw a vertical line, assign Y, give it a dimension, set the correct dimension, and select the correct spline point and give it a midpoint relation with the line. So the line should lie directly on the surface of the part. Let's add another line. Give it a midpoint relation. We already picked up the Y as a automatic relation. And now let's place the dimension. Not to place a dimension between the line and existing geometry. Okay, now in order to make the flat wire boundary surface, I'm going to exit the 3D sketch, create a boundary surface, and direction 1 will be the spline. Direction 2, I'll use Selection Manager because I have various entities within a single sketch. Click, right-click. Turn off the curvature combs because that's going to get distracting. right click. And by clicking on a consistent end of the wire, you can help determine how the wire twists. Okay. Click, right click. Click, right click. Click, right click. Okay, now you can see in this area right here, it flipped ends, which is probably causing the rest of this ballooning. Let's go back and try to find that edge. Right click. And in order to flip connectors, we need to cancel out of the selection manager first. Then right click and flip connectors. Now the rest of our selections are still off, so we'll flip connectors, and then we're good. With that sort of a wire, you might need a different wire clip. And in this area of the spline, we might want to go back and add a spline point to pull it out. Right click, insert spline, put it on there. And instead of putting the wire directly on the surface, we could place a dimension. Pull this out slightly. We could make a dimension that goes from the face to the point. Might have to delete the coincident relationship first. Look at this from the top view, pull it out. Place a dimension from the point to the face, in this case 0.06. And we can do the same sort of thing to keep this a consistent height off the bottom. Dimension from the bottom face to the point, and 1.8. To make the wire from this, we can insert boss base, thicken, and choose to thicken it one side or the other or a midplane. And all you need is a visual of a wire that looks pretty good. And in this case, except for this transition area, we're doing okay.